Can you kill the lights?
Welcome to Kill the Lights, the podcast that deals with everything horror and on the fringes of dark culture and underground culture, whatever you want to call it. Basically, we talk about the scary stuff. And this is Joey D, and with me is Carl de Mesa.
Yeah.
And for today's episode, we like to talk about music that really captured our attention. We're not going to go too deep into it, but basically music that we enjoyed, the music that caught our attention, again, mainly for being dark and
outstanding.
And again, it's a new year, it's 2020, but we're talking about music like maybe not just in 2019, but maybe the past decade, because 2020 is such a round number. We're going to be looking at the past decade. We agreed to limit the list to 2 artists each, because basically we're going to be talking about more music anyway throughout the year.
Exactly.
But 2 bands that really caught our attention. So we're going to be talking about it today. Just going to give you a general overview. And I guess I'll start with it because I became a huge geek for this Swedish band called Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
I've been forcing it down everybody's throats.
People in masks. They're Swedish. I didn't know. I thought they were Norwegian. See? There's something new every
it's
day.
easy to confuse both because basically it's from places far away and cold and dense and depressing. But Ghost, they started out as a band. They started out in 2006, if you can believe, long time ago, 14 years ago. But it was only recently that they gained their momentum, mainly because they started opening for Metallica, and they were coming out with awesome music videos, again, which I've been forcing down everybody's throats. And surprisingly, I like the way that despite the darkness, despite the pseudo-satanic imagery, they decided to move within the confines of the mainstream music scene. They've been nominated for Grammys, and
they're actually easy to listen to, right?
And they're very easy to listen to. When I first saw them and I saw the imagery and I saw Papa Emeritus, the singer, of course, what immediately came to my mind, I was like, wait, are they a heavy metal band? Are they a black metal band? Are they a thrash metal band? But it turns out their link to heavy metal is more,
it's tenuous, right?
Yeah, it harkens to the old days when heavy metal was still evolving. So it's like a combination of Black Sabbath type riffs, but
Blue Oyster Cult is something that comes to mind to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Blue Oyster Cult, Grim Reaper,
Hawkwind.
And surprisingly, they do have elements of, like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Very poppy stuff, like folkish.
Very folk. And when they started out, of course, a lot of it was dark music, flat fifths and whatnot, organs and satanic lyrics. But the way they've been evolving is like you mentioned, pop music formats is they've been reaching out to like more late 70s, early 80s kind of music. One of the biggest hits of the year, I think was it Kerrang or Metal Hammer? They named the Ghost Hammer the heavy metal song of the decade.
Wow. Which is off Meliora.
Yeah, which is big praises. And then they followed that up with an even better video of Dance Macabre, which sounded so much like a combination of Kiss's I Was Made for Loving You.
Wow.
And if it was sung by the guy from Scorpions.
Now that you mention it, it does sound like Kiss.
It has that dance aerobics vibe.
Aerobics,
Richard
exactly.
Simmons kind of vibe. But the voice uncannily sounds like the guy from the Scorpions.
Can you talk a bit, Joey, about, because I'm pretty sure you like the visuals, and because they wear masks, they wear like costumes. What makes them like different from the Slipknots of the world?
Yeah, no, one, they can actually play music. I don't know, not a Slipknot fan, but one is, especially for music junkies like us, where I am a heavy metal fan, but I listen to a lot of great music. You can literally hear, it's been said over and over, but with Ghost you can literally hear where they're grabbing their influences from, and it's not just hard rock and heavy metal. Again, on some passages it sounds like an Emerson, Lake and Palmer song, where
which is so unusual, right?
Which is very unusual
for guys who are wearing like masks. And
it's like listening to Sabbath, and then someone very rudely like throws the record and then puts in Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or a song like "Summer Breeze" right in the middle of a happening rock riff. So it's this creativity plus the ongoing story. There's too many details, but basically, the singer Papa Emeritus has they went through 3 Papa Emerituses.
So there have been 3 singers.
There have been 3, and it's part of the story. And now there's a new guy singing it, a new character, because again they are characters in this big concept. And apparently the band is all formed in the mind of one Tobias Forge, who Tobias is
the mastermind.
He's the mastermind. Okay. He writes the songs. He's in charge of the mythology of the entire band, and basically he's the guy pulling the strings.
In a way, do you think they're closer to Gorillaz?
It's like Gorillaz. That actually came to mind, especially after watching the videos. If you go even further, it's more like Meatloaf. Jim Steinman and what's Meatloaf's real name?
I don't know
whatever his real name is. Yeah,
as actor.
But Meatloaf is actually the character, but then Jim Steinman and Meatloaf's alter ego, the real guy, they work on the music, and it's part of this big opera or whatever. Yes. It's part of this bigger story.
Each album tells another chapter.
Yeah, is another chapter. And with Ghost, it's interesting because again they are a self-proclaimed satanic band. So the albums through the years about bringing in the end of the world, the triumph of the new Pope, and then getting rid of the Pope and getting this new character in. Who is this new character? And what's cool is as the story evolves, the sound also evolves. So again, they started in 2006. It's 2020 now, and they are feeling they're definitely one of the most successful bands that is yet to come here to Manila. But it's all very, you might not like the music totally, because I know there are a lot of metalheads expecting super sludgy whatever.
The purists don't like them.
Yeah, fucking heavy whatever stuff. But if you're a fan of really good rock music and how creativity and a story and a concept, if you're fans of all of the above, Ghost is definitely one of those bands to check out. Again, it's not the newest band out there, but the recent developments really caught my attention, and I think it's worthy for. It's like heavy metal for fans who don't necessarily like heavy metal. You can learn a lot of stuff, and again, the imagery's cool. It's dark, it's satanic, so definitely worth checking.
Joey,
out.
One of the things that struck me is they're very European look, right?
Yeah.
The Vatican robes, the Catholic robes, the cloaks, the monkish cloaks.
Yeah, and even the backup band, they call themselves the Nameless Ghouls.
The Nameless Ghouls.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned before they were like monks.
Yeah, they seem like monks.
But they also evolved, so now they're now they have this Victorian formal coat and tie thing going on. And dude, when you watch the live videos on YouTube, it's a spectacle.
It's a show. It's a light show.
It's a show. It's a really good show, which is why it was just weird watching their video when they opened for Metallica. Of course, they're an opening act. They played when the sun was out. It was still light outside. And I was like, yeah, that's not probably their biggest strength. But if you watch the other live videos, especially with the former Papa Emeritus' awesome music. If you want to dive deeply into the mythology, you can check out their Wikipedia page. It'll enlighten you. But you don't have to be a fan of the old Ghost or Ghost BC to appreciate the new Ghost. That's actually a good, it's like movies. A good movie, even if you've never watched the sequel, the prequel, or the original version, a good movie will stand on its own. And I think the same goes for music. How about you? What have you been getting into?
Me, I've been digging back into the mid 2010s, like 2013, 2014. One of the best, because I've been on a black metal trip for the past 3 years. And looking back, one of the most innovative bands has been the one-man black metal band, Panopticon. Panopticon, right? Which is basically
sounds
Andrew
like a transformer,
Lunn.
right?
I know, right? And then you get to see that yung maugat, the branching kind of font that black metal
font. Yeah.
Well, what am I reading? Panopticon. Okay. So this guy Andrew Lunn is one-man black metal artist who hails from Kentucky, and on his breakthrough records, also named Kentucky, he fuses Appalachian bluegrass, folk, and country music with black metal. On paper, it sounds like it's a disaster, right?
Yeah, that's like an oxymoron.
Like an oxymoron. But this dude makes it work. He even incorporates so much political and social commentary about his states because again, it's Kentucky. He feels a lot about his state. He feels so much for the people there because it's apparently an old mining state. There's so many miners, and the economy is built on mining and precious metals, gold, stuff like that. He fuses black metal and Appalachian bluegrass to express his pain, his sorrow, his joy, and his delight about his state, that it becomes one of the most mind-blowing black metal records, not only because of the attack of the blast beats and the trilling guitars and stuff like that, all those Norwegian true black metal tropes that we got from Mayhem and all those other true Norwegian guys.
I think the most important thing to mention here is it's a win for the black metal genre because to some point I've always thought black metal was something not just I guess what I'm trying to say is black metal to me was always like geographically connected to the musicians.
Like you can't be European and play it.
Yeah,
right?
because a lot of the black metal stuff it deals with atmosphere because Norway
landscape's cold.
Like Norway, it was fucking cold. You got the mountains, you got ice all year long. The sun doesn't come out that much.
Then you have angst about Christianity.
Because basically these guys were victims of the Crusades.
Yeah.
But I always found it stupid, especially, and I'm not trying to offend people, but like Philippine black metal. I mean, number one, black metal, of course, has a look in itself.
Yeah.
Like we're talking like almost like leather, exclusively long, and it's pretty hard to do that in a tropical country. I mean, so I've always had this love hate relationship with black metal personally because I always felt that it's a Norwegian thing. It's the
trappings of it are specifically European, Norwegian, and Swedish. I guess.
Exactly.
And the people, we talked about this in one of our podcast episodes, the people who are purists there want to defend it by killing other people.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God. So let's not touch that.
So it's
but it is a win for black metal.
It is a win, right? Because number one, Kentucky. My God.
The seed of black metal, Norwegian and really cold Viking climate kind of genre would find a haven in the moist forests of the American South.
Yeah.
Is really such a win, and it just breathes new life into the genre. The kind of installment, like this is a chapter in black metal that none of the purists should overlook or neglect, because for somebody like Andrew Lunn to have had an epiphany about the genre, to be able to marry these things is a win not only for him, not only for Panopticon, not only for American black metal, but also for black metal in general. Right?
And I'm assuming the Norwegian and the Swedish black metal guys, they'll probably hate it because
because you're
black metal
purist.
is attached to the culture.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned, I think it's a win because one, whether the Norwegians like it or not, number one is it'll open doors for the genre. People will suddenly be like Americans or people who may not be aware of black metal. It basically tells people, hey, look, we can adapt this form of music, this soundtrack to what's happening here.
Yes,
because part of black metal, again, is about atmosphere and surroundings.
And a hatred of some monolithic organization, I think.
Yeah. Do you hear like as someone who listens to Panopticon, do you actually hear the bluegrass stuff?
The bluegrass stuff is right front and center in some tracks,
okay.
and it's married quite well with the blast beats. Because usually bluegrass is like an upbeat kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Major chords.
Major
right?
chords.
Yeah.
But here, when he puts the devil's triad,
the
flat fifth, the third one, when he plays it on a banjo or a resonator guitar.
Yeah, I can imagine it's very eerie.
It's very eerie. It's like you're walking through the wilds of the South, just waiting for
being chased by the devil. Yeah.
Oh my God! Like there is even that atmosphere of when the bluesmen were trading their souls at the crossroads.
Okay,
it has that.
So you get that sound, that Robert Johnson kind of.
That Robert Johnson, the nigger at the crossroads, who is trying to sell his soul to the devil.
Exactly.
One of the most eerie tracks on this one has him reading a letter of a miner who was sure that he was going to die in a cave-in.
Okay.
And it was chilling because he was refuting the mining company and the powers that be that put him in that situation. It was a letter to his son.
Wow.
When they found his body, they found the letter in him, and he read.
Damn, that's dark.
Yeah, that's so dark, man. Like, this is the most chilling song I've heard in like a lot of black metal now.
Yeah. And usually, despite the imagery, like it's not scary at all.
Not scary at all.
I mean, I'm assuming that
it's not spooky. Dude.
It sets the mood, but it's more the intensity that attracts me, especially like for guitar players and drummers. It's the intensity of that is the reason why I did. I'm not gonna claim to be a big black metal fan, but I did like the genre for what it was. And of course, the mythology behind the characters, the history is very colorful. But yeah, it's the intensity so very few black metal albums can be like terrifying.
This one was like.
So this was legit.
I'm sure as a guitar player, you also played around with that monochromatic. I mean that polychromatic, like trilling,
all 16th notes,
notes, stuff like that. Because it's just fun to play, right?
Yeah, it's really good shit. So the name is Panopticon.
The album is Kentucky.
I love it. It's so awesome. So we've done Panopticon, we've done Ghost.
What is your next one, bro?
Well, the next one is another Swedish band. I don't know. I'm starting to like these fucking Swedes. But Watain made a lot of news the past year. Particularly because they almost made it to Asia. I say almost because they were supposed to play a gig in Singapore, but then the show basically was called off because of the moral right,
far radicalized left.
Basically the show was stopped. But it was number one. They caught my attention because again, they are labeled as a black metal group, but there's so many elements. If you see their videos on YouTube, there are a lot of elements of the woods, folk music,
mountains, stuff like that.
Images of trolls, dwarves, and pagan tribes.
Were there people in corpse paint?
Well, there are some, but it's not
the front and center.
It's not your typical all just corpse paint and leather, black leather. These guys, they actually look like a tribe when they perform on stage.
Folkish,
animal skin, and a lot of pyrotechnics, a lot of fur, a lot of animal carcasses and blood. They performed in Brooklyn in 2014, and they actually threw animal blood at the crowd.
Wow.
They doused them in animal blood, and some of the members, even though they were hardcore black metal fans, it caused them to vomit and hurl
because of the smell. Apparently,
I'm pretty sure it's the smell. And but I mean, I always champion authenticity. I mean, dude, if you can't handle it, then you're probably not a black metal fan. But yeah, the show is always made. It's quite a production, candles and everything. and again pyrotechnics. As you can tell, I'm a fan of the whole Kiss thing. I mean,
atmosphere.
It's not just music; it's atmosphere, it's attitude, it's stage presence, it's costume. Mainly headed by the core lineup: Eric Danielson, Pele Forsberg, and Hakan Johnson. But basically, they are behind the whole mythology. They're behind the story of the band. I've yet to listen to all of their music, but they're under Century Media at the moment, and you can watch their festival appearances on YouTube. And dude, it is an awesome show. And again, black metal, for those of you who are not quite familiar with it, black metal isn't all about blast beats and 16-note guitar riffs, but it is fueled by that mainly. But it's always,
there's a fair bit of atmosphere.
There's atmosphere. There's and Watain uses like traditional tribal instruments like
lutes and
drums,
stuff, like
with weird
animal skin,
weird animal skin, and lyres, flutes. Yes,
those panpipes things.
Exactly. They're setting a vibe. They're setting, and I think they do it very well. Again, I'm not an expert in the genre, nor do I claim to be. And there might be other bands like it, but I love how there's that desire to go out and bring the music. Because look, as much as I respect underground culture and how some bands or artists like to stay in the underground, but again, it's 2020. I mean,
what is it with the underground obsession, man?
I don't know. I think that's a whole different episode altogether. but I like the fact that these guys are, because number one, it promotes, it may sound funny, but to me, it promotes culture.
It promotes cultural investigation, right?
In some fucked up way, maybe even tourism. Wow. I would love to go to Sweden. I would love to go to Norway. And number three, it's the experience. Again, we're not just buying CDs anymore. You're paying for the show. You're paying to feel something. So whether or not that something is good or bad, as most art, I think it's most important that it garners a reaction, and it's not.
What's interesting to me is when you said about its atmosphere, the candles, the fur, the animal skins, and then the folk instrumentation. It really seems like as much a ritual as it is a music show.
Exactly, because there have been black metal bands like let's see, what's a good example? Like
Mayhem,
Mayhem, or even like other bands like Dimmu Borgir,
Dimmu Borgir,
they that's their claim. Their shows are not just performances; they're rituals. And the interesting thing about Watain is their claim is they are theistic Satanists.
What does that mean?
It's awesome.
Theistic Satanists.
I think like your traditional Satanism. Well, no, I probably can't say traditional, but the most common Satanism is like LaVeyan Satanism, wherein
the devil's worshipped as an entity.
The devil is it's an entity. It's the force. It's not a real thing, but it is the attitude. It's man at its most primal, giving into his primal urges. Theistic Satanism is actually believing that the devil is an entity, that you can actually summon him and use him for your to do your bidding or vice versa.
Okay.
So they actually believe that there is a Satan, and the funny thing with theistic Satanists is they're big on rituals.
Of course they are, because they're theistic.
Yeah,
it's a religion.
They love it, and. Well, the history of theistic Satanism is, it started as early as the witch trials in Europe, where again the
Inquisition, right?
They believe that you can actually summon him and use him to your bidding. So Watain, I'm still heavily getting into it. Again, I'm not an expert when it comes to Watain, but they've definitely caught my attention, and it's something that's been keeping me preoccupied so far into the new year. Exactly.
Man. So interesting.
Watain is the name. And you have one more artist that you've been listening to.
I'd like to talk about, because they were here like earlier last year in December. Deafheaven was nominated not only for a Grammy, I think, but also as Vice Magazine's artist of the decade.
Wow.
Imagine a black metal band
being the artist of the decade.
Artist of the decade. But they're not really a black metal band. I think they're an atmospheric rock band because there's so much color in their music. There's like shoegaze, there's like drone, there's basic blues, and I think it's almost like arena rock at this point, except with the vocals. You can't understand it. It's Cookie Monster vocals. And yet at the same time, it's part of the instrumentation, right?
Okay.
Like it's buried underneath the guitars and the drums and the bass. But it really is one of the instruments because you can't understand what George Clark is saying, the vocalist. So when I saw them live, I mean, I've been listening to these guys for a couple of years. I was a big fan of their Rose to Judah album. Then there was Sunbather. And then there was New Bermuda. They keep getting slicker. And I think it goes back to me for in the Rose to Judah album, where there's much more coherence in the black metal because I'm not a purist, but I do like to hear the black metal in my black metal.
Yeah.
Like
lo-fi guitars,
stuff.
Very dirty and heavily
I think
distorted.
it was you who told me like some of the black metal artists used to like poke holes into their amps.
Yeah, just for that real deal distortion. Yeah.
And, well, not can't get more real than like poked
than a fucking busted amp. Yeah.
So then the latest one is Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. It's very challenging listen now for those who are not only purists but who love that traditional black metal sound. But I think when I saw them, what really struck me was how much color in their palette is in there. With it almost sounds very much in parts like post rock, but the execution is arena rock. Let me go through briefly their lineup because it was initially made up of George Clark and Kerry McCoy as a solo as a duo project, blending black metal and shoegaze. But then they added a hardcore guitarist and another bassist that was from the punk scene.
Okay.
So when they got the attention of the Converge frontman Jacob Bannon, they got into they were able to release an EP, and it started from there. Like they were not only selling out small club venues, they were able to book gigs with the likes of Between the Bird and Me and Pallbearer, which is one of the biggest
bigger names
on the progressive music and progressive metal scene, right? So from there they thought, hey, let's make a real band out of this and let's go out there. And then when I saw them, you can really see how much thought, because they also put out like a show in terms of like just picking their visuals and picking the moments to show off their. Like they don't have as much of a fireworks show as the other black metal bands. And when we say black metal, people will probably think they wear corpse paint and they have that armor with the pointy
the spikes and
whatnot, the boots and stuff. Like though these guys look like hipsters, man. Like they're dressed in all black, but these guys look normal.
Yeah.
But when they play, they turn into what I call black metal shamans.
Okay.
Because again, the set, which was just 4 songs, bro.
Yeah.
4 songs for
what a jip.
an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That was, because each song was like 12 minutes each.
Okay.
Like, oh my God. So the movement of the songs and the structure actually sounds like classical suites.
Okay.
And the way that they lay down these songs, it's almost like a crescendo ritual. Like when you said about Ghosts set, right?
Yeah.
And Watain, where they establish an atmosphere, seduce you with that, pull the audience in, and then an opportune moment, throw blood into the audience, like, and then wake them up. It's the same with Deafheaven. I think I wouldn't go too far as saying they are the artists of the decade.
Yeah.
But they are definitely not only a standout of the decade, they're one of the most innovative artists, not only for metal, but I think for rock music in general.
So definitely an act. Hopefully they do more.
They do more, yeah.
Sometimes the trappings of bands like Deafheaven are it started out as a project, and well, I guess they took it seriously now. But it would be nice if they become like really consistent with it, and
exactly.
like with the bands, the previous bands we talked about, like develop more into their mythology. To some black metal fans, that's probably sacrilege.
I guess actually to the garden variety,
to dress in your ordinary clothes.
Ordinary clothes,
because again, it's a geographical, and it's not just geographically rooted, but it's also rooted in the fashion sense, in the look,
what you wear, the corpse paint, the attitude.
But I guess I get your point. I like how boundaries are. I always feel that boundaries are meant to be broken. Rules are definitely meant to be broken. Do we still call it black metal? I guess that's up for debate.
That's up for debate. Maybe like the new wave of British heavy metal back then. They didn't call themselves heavy metal anymore.
They didn't identify with heavy metal. But it's nice to see like genres like this. The important thing is it's being kept alive. That's the thing with Deafheaven. Again, it keeps black, whether or not the purists admit it or not, it's keeping black metal alive, and it's teaching newer generations about black metal.
That there are more colors in your palette rather than just black, white, and gray.
Now, whether or not it's proper to call it black metal, that's up for debate. And that's
up
a different conversation.
2020, I think.
But as far as bands like looking out for, following, Deafheaven is definitely one of those bands. I was very interested in the component of Deafheaven. I was more interested with the whole post math angle they have with it, where they're going to bring it post metal. A lot of really good post metal bands are actually surfacing in the underground scenes, especially even in the States. So it's interesting how they can evolve this, and hopefully it doesn't end up like Gent, where it's just one of it's just one sound, but 100 other bands. Like, I mean, we throughout musical history, there's always been that one genre that is really huge. Like nu metal was really huge, but
and then it fizzled out.
It's not timeless.
It's not timeless.
Like now, if you do it, it's almost like retro. I mean, with all due respect to nu metal and gent, like they were forces to be reckoned with. But then again, the timelessness, that's the bigger challenge.
When you say timelessness, the fans then aren't necessarily fans now, right?
Yeah. If it's timeless piece of music, you like it forever. But
it's not Black Sabbath.
Yeah, like all great heavy metal music, once you're into it, it's not like, oh yeah, when I was 15, that summer I listened to heavy metal.
To me, like no.
But no, well, like once you're hooked with heavy metal, hooked to heavy metal, or like with other genres, you'll be a lifelong fan. So that's something we can only hope for like a band like Deafheaven,
and Pain,
hopefully
and
like 10 years from now we're still listening to you guys.
Yeah,
and
consistency, like you said,
and you've evolved, whatnot. Evolution isn't always a good thing. I mean, look, we can talk about Metallica all day. That basically
wasn't another episode. Bro.
Wasn't a good thing for them, but with music like this, especially like with black metal, or let's just call it like generally dark underground music. It's always a treat when you see that they survive the test of time, and they get even more creative as they go.
Yes.
So yeah, these are the names: Panopticon and Deafheaven for Carl, and for me it's Ghost and Watain. We got a lot more music episodes coming up for you guys, and we'll go delve deeper into the bands. But in the meantime, we just want to give you guys a heads up if you're looking for something to listen to that might tickle your fancy. Anyway, this has been Kill the Lights podcast. Do follow us on Facebook, Kill the Lights PH, and we'll see you next episode. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. This has been the Kill the Lights podcast. It's produced and recorded at Big Baby Studios. Follow us on Facebook and follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.